September 8, 1941. The last land connection to the city of Leningrad is severed. What follows is not just a battle, not just a siege, but an 872-day descent into a hell previously unimaginable. This is the story of a city that refused to die, a population that endured the unendurable, and a testament to the terrifying extremes of human resilience and cruelty. Forget what you think you know about sieges. Leningrad was different. It was a metropolis, a jewel of culture and science, turned into a frozen prison for nearly 3 million souls. Their enemy wasn't just the German army encircling them, but a more insidious foe that stalked every street, every apartment, every starving body: hunger. This is the story of how a city of poets and engineers survived on scraps of leather, wallpaper paste, and the sheer will to see another sunrise. Before the war, Leningrad, the former St. Petersburg, was the cradle of the Russian Revolution, a vibrant hub of art, industry, and intellect. Its grand avenues, palaces, and canals spoke of imperial glory. While its factories churned out the hardware of the Soviet state, it was a city of immense symbolic importance to both Hitler and Stalin. For Hitler, capturing Leningrad was a key objective of Operation Barbarossa. He didn't just want to conquer it. He wanted to wipe it from the face of the earth, erasing its legacy and its people. His directive number 1A was chillingly clear. Leningrad was to be blockaded, shelled into oblivion, and its population left to starve. The Führer had no interest in feeding its millions of inhabitants. As German and Finnish forces slammed the Iron Ring shut in September 1941, the city's leadership made a catastrophic miscalculation. They had failed to evacuate a significant portion of the population and, more critically, failed to stockpile adequate food supplies. The initial rations seemed manageable, but they were a prelude to a nightmare. By late October, the situation was becoming dire. The German Luftwaffe relentlessly bombed the city's food warehouses, most famously the Badaev warehouses, sending tons of sugar and flour up in flames. The smell of burning sugar, a sweet, sickening aroma, hung over the city, a cruel mockery of the famine to come. As the first winter, the infamous winter of 1941-42, closed its icy fist, the ration cards became sentences of slow death. By November, the daily bread ration for a worker was a mere 250 grams. For children and non-workers, it was half that, 125 grams. This bread was barely deserving of the name. It was a dense, damp lump, made of rye flour, bulked out with anything that could be ground up: sawdust, cottonseed cakes, floor sweepings, even cellulose stripped from wallpaper. People would boil leather belts and briefcases to create an edible jelly. They would hunt for crows and rats. In the city's Institute of Plant Industry, scientists guarded a priceless collection of seeds and grains from around the world. As people starved around them, these botanists chose to starve to death themselves, protecting the future of agriculture rather than eating the seeds that could have saved them. It was a sacrifice of unimaginable proportions. The cold was a constant, brutal companion. With fuel supplies exhausted, the city froze. Pipes burst, leaving buildings without water. Electricity failed, plunging the city into a perpetual twilight. People burned their furniture, their books, their floorboards, anything to generate a flicker of warmth. Death became a mundane, everyday occurrence. Bodies lay on the streets, sometimes for days, as no one had the strength to move them. People would collapse on their way to the bread queue or at their factory workbench. Special teams, often composed of young women, were tasked with clearing the streets, dragging the frozen dead on sleds to mass graves. The emotional toll was immense. Diaries from the period, like that of 11-year-old Tanya Savecheva, provide a chilling record. Her small notebook contains just a few lines, each one documenting the death of a family member, ending with the haunting words: "The Savechevs are dead. Everyone is dead. Only Tanya is left." Yet, amidst this apocalypse, the spirit of Leningrad flickered, refusing to be extinguished. This is the great paradox of the siege. Even as their bodies wasted away, the people of Leningrad showed incredible defiance. Factories continued to produce tanks and munitions. Workers, emaciated and weak, would sometimes be tied to their machines to prevent them from collapsing. The cultural life of the city, incredibly, persisted. The libraries remained open. Scholars gave lectures in unheated rooms, their breaths clouding in the air. And most famously, on August 9, 1942, the very day Hitler had planned a lavish victory banquet in the city's Astoria Hotel, something remarkable happened. Dmitri Shostakovich, who had begun composing his Seventh Symphony in the besieged city, had his score flown out, microfilmed, and delivered to the city's remaining musicians. The Karl Eliasberg Orchestra was a skeleton crew. Many musicians had starved or been killed. The conductor had to search the city, pulling players from military bands and hospitals. During rehearsals, they were so weak they could barely hold their instruments. On the day of the premiere, the Soviet command launched a massive artillery bombardment on German lines. Not to attack, but to ensure silence for the performance. And so, in the Grand Philharmonia Hall, with loudspeakers broadcasting the music across the city and to the enemy lines, the Leningrad Symphony was performed. It was an act of artistic defiance, so powerful, it was said the German soldiers who heard it understood they would never conquer a city capable of such a feat. The only lifeline to the outside world was a perilous route across the frozen surface of Lake Ladoga. Known as the Road of Life, this ice road was the city's artery. From November to April, convoys of trucks braved the treacherous, constantly shifting ice, all while under relentless German air and artillery attack. The drivers, often young men and women, were heroes. They transported vital food supplies into the city and evacuated the weakest civilians on the return journey. The road was lined with broken-down trucks and markers for where vehicles had plunged through the ice. It was a fragile, desperate connection, but it kept Leningrad alive. It wasn't enough to end the famine, but it provided just enough to prevent the city's complete collapse, allowing it to hold on. In January 1943, the Red Army launched Operation Iskra, or Spark. After ferocious fighting, Soviet forces broke through the German lines south of Lake Ladoga, creating a narrow land corridor, 8 to 11 kilometers wide. The siege was not over, but it was broken. Supplies could now be brought in more reliably, and the slow process of recovery could begin. The famine eased, though hardship remained. It would take another full year of brutal, grinding warfare for the Red Army to finally push the Germans back and completely lift the siege. On January 27, 1944, the city of Leningrad was declared fully liberated. The news was met with a mixture of joy and profound sorrow. The sky erupted not with the flash of German shells, but with a massive celebratory fireworks display. The cost was staggering. While Soviet-era figures claimed around 670,000 civilian deaths, modern historians estimate the number is far higher, likely between 1 and 1.5 million people. The vast majority of them died, not from bombs or bullets, but from starvation and cold. The Siege of Leningrad stands as one of the longest and most destructive sieges in history, a symbol of both unspeakable suffering and incredible human endurance. It is a story that should never be forgotten, a testament to a city that, when faced with annihilation, chose to live, to fight, and even to create, in the darkest of times. The story of Leningrad reminds us that behind the grand strategies and faceless numbers of war are individual stories of courage, loss, and the unyielding power of the human spirit. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing for more journeys into the past.